I dropped out of university 18 years ago and started my business. Here's everything I learned in the real world and what university and college would never ever teach you. So a lot of people ask me, Melvin, why do you drop out of university? And let me take you back to the time when I kind of realized that the traditional education, university, college system was completely broken. 18 years ago, I was sitting in the lecture hall and I was watching a professor who had never ever started anything business related. And he was teaching a whole class for 3 hours about entrepreneurship. And he was having everybody reference a thick textbook written by academics who had never built anything. And all around, I just literally saw every of these students in this study hall furiously taking notes, writing all these concepts down. And I was like, I'm learning from a guy who has never done it before, reading off a book by people who have never done it before. And we are all learning this stuff. And I realized we're not being educated. In fact, we are probably being domesticated. And it planted that thought in my mind. Why am I here? And it was when I left the lecture hall and I told myself, you know what, I just don't want to go back and learn this kind of stuff because I don't want to be learning stuff that does not work in the real world. But leaving university was one thing. Knowing exactly what to do was another thing. So if I didn't want traditional education, I clearly had to find my own form of education. And that was when I started to dive into self-education, self-learning. Because I quickly realized when I started my business, just because I did well in school before, didn't mean I could automatically translate everything that I knew into the business. I had no skills. And so I did what every good general, every good entrepreneur did. I went to start studying and building my own knowledge education bank. I started to realize that what works in the real world has everything to do with not just business skills, but also how you operate your mind, your spirit, your body, because the business is often a reflection of self. So if your body is not strong, your mind is not strong, your spirit is not strong, then what you have is your symptomatic business problems. And these business problems are actually root cause caused by the person with it. Because remember, the business always is a reflection of self. So in this short video, I want to share with you a lot of the concepts and ideas I've picked up over the last 18 years that can really help you improve your business by improving yourself. I'm going to talk about the first concept I call mind sovereignty. See, the university teaches you what to think, but the real world teaches you how to think. Now also, the ability to absorb and filter information is very important. Remember, we're not here to take tests and exams. We're here to use the information we have collected from books and other materials and sources in our business. So knowing what is good and what is important and knowing how to use it is really critical. The next concept is how to get the most out of your body. That's really important because fundamentally everything in business comes from energy and comes from proper nervous system regulation. I know this is kind of surprising for a lot of entrepreneurs. Not many people are aware of how this works, but if your nervous system is shot and you are in a stressed out, jittery state, you make very bad decisions. I wish somebody had told me this 18 years ago. And also how you can manage your energy, because if you're fatigued and you're tired, or you're in a place where you're not in a good mental space, you're going to make poor decisions. So knowing how exactly to regulate your nervous system, knowing exactly how to manage your energy is very, very important. Now the final one is how do you galvanize your spirit? Galvanize is such a big term, but how do you energize yourself? How do you make sure that your energy, your spirit is pure, is coming across from a very powerful place? Knowing how to have presence, magnetism, having that strong motivation within for you to want to do something is very, very critical. Most of the time when people fail, it's not just because their mind is not in a good space or their body is not in a good space, spiritually, energetically, just deep from within. They just don't really want it. They cannot find a reason to do it. They're not very clear what they want. It doesn't come from a pure, powerful place. And when that happens, then just nothing really comes out. So these are things that school has never ever taught us. So they don't address this. They just teach you a bunch of information, usually from people who have never done it before. So we're going to dive into all these concepts that I think are very critical that no one else talks about in this video. So let me explain to you how I actually dived into this mind, body and spirit connection. It was really important. So when I first started, I had no concept of all these. I just thought, if I knew how to do some marketing stuff, business stuff, sales skills, my business would really, really succeed. And so I studied a lot of materials, applied some of it, sometimes well, sometimes not very well, sometimes poorly. And I did see some kind of results. But at that point in time, my mind was not in a good space because school never taught me how to use it properly. I didn't understand about energy regulation and how exactly to moderate my nervous system and regulate it. And so I was frequently drinking too much coffee, resting too little, and just my whole system was shot. And also I didn't understand about spirit, about my purpose and what exactly I wanted to do. So imagine, I had a bunch of information but couldn't fully utilize it because mentally, physically, spiritually, I was not in a good space. But it wasn't until I studied and improved many of these areas, fixed my mind, so I make better decisions. I fix my body, so I understand how energy works and how the nervous system works. I come from a calm, grounded, centered place and really check in with myself from a spiritual standpoint. Is this what I really want to do? Is this something that really aligns with who I am spiritually? Do I find the right motivation and drive to go and do it? When all these things align, Now, they serve as rocket propellers. So mentioned there are 3 rocket propellers now. They're all firing at the same time. And all of a sudden, I felt my business really explode. I felt my energy levels go through the roof. I felt my focus really increase. And that was when I started to see business results. And so it wasn't that magically I found a new sales script or funnel script or whatever these marketing tools were. I always had kind of the right plan, but it was because I was aligned mentally, physically, and spiritually in the right space. And that was what propelled and improved the business. So normally when you go to universities, no one ever talks about this kind of stuff, and just not talking about it doesn't make it not happen for you. You see, when you don't discuss how to work your nervous system and how exactly you can be in a good energy space, and you drain yourself out, you drain. Even if you don't know this or know this stuff, if you don't know how to apply it, it affects you all the same. Same for your mind, same for your spirit as well. I see a lot of people struggling. When I coach a lot of top folks, they struggle because they have no idea, no concept at all of how these things work. Hence me wanting to show this video. So in this video, I'm going to share with you a few ideas that have really helped and worked for me, both in terms of mind, body, and spirit. So let's break down mind, body, and spirit, give you some of the things that I've used that I think are very, very helpful. So every time I process information, I am not thinking like an academic. There's one thing that we all need to unlearn. Most of us spend too long in school, and so we are collecting information for information's sake. So if you have a piece of book, right, you see a lot of people at the seminar just taking tons and tons of notes. We all understand most of them are just repeating and writing down whatever the speaker says. And at no point in time do they actually spend time processing it. And we also know the majority of them will never quite open this book after the event is over, which meant that they're performing and behaving just like a student in school. And that is a huge block. You do not want that. You must understand that every information that you take down is to be utilized and in some case weaponized within your business. If you have no intention of collecting, no intention of using the information, you don't even collect it and don't even write it down. Or if you were to do that, you need to spend an equal amount of time post-event asking yourself, what exactly am I going to use from this? How exactly am I going to do it? I would say 5 to 10% collection, 90 to 95% implementation, processing. That's really, really critical. If you don't touch the book right after the event is over, then this entire event, taking these notes has been entirely useless also. Very, very important to have that practical element right from the beginning. Now, the next thing when it comes to decision making that I think has been very, very useful for me is to base it on a few things also. The first thing is to ask yourself a future looking back question. So I was having a conversation with one of our marketers recently, and he was asking me, hey, are we looking to build your social media presence, etc.? How are we going to go about it? And I said very simple, what would the 1 million followers Mel be writing and producing and be speaking as? So when we put ourselves in the future first, looking back, it often makes the decision making a lot easier. It's not how do I get to 1 million, it's what would that 1 million person be doing or look back upon and say this is the framework or this is the process that got us there. Because we all have different aspects within ourselves. If we put ourselves already in that space and look back upon what we ought to do in order to get there, you'll very likely find the answer within. So it's some form of future pacing, some form of backwards engineering. I think that process has been very, very helpful for me. Now, the next thing also is to really look at decisions that align with your values. When I was working with my previous business partner, Joe, we used to have a saying, and the saying was, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. So if you want to pick partners, projects, etc., you want to look for things that align with your values in a very aligned manner, not you having to adjust and just push and pull yourself in a way that kind of barely fit it. I found that when those things take place, usually the outcomes are not as ideal. It eventually breaks down the road. So always look for decisions that you are already in that space. You look back, what did you do, and also look for partners that you align entirely with. I think it's very important. Or projects you align entirely with that match your values, and so it's a hell yes. If you have to kind of debate whether it's a hell yes, then just say no to that. Now, for body and nervous system regulation, one thing that's worked very well for me is doing some form of breath work. I've looked at so many things that make people be calmer, oftentimes not very healthy for them, and some are healthier for them. And I've come to a simple conclusion that all of us are in search of two things. We are all in search of relieving stress and increasing dopamine. It's simply everything that people do. Whether it's good for them or not good for them, we are all trying to relieve some form of stress. just letting the valve out and just letting the gas out, because when it builds too much, then we go into a state of panic or just stress and tension. And another form is an increased pleasure feeling, which is dopamine. If you look at just behaviors that are good for people, not good for people, if people have a gambling problem, they have a sex addiction problem, they're drinking a lot, or they take drugs, etc., what are they attempting to do? They're attempting to do two things. They're in places they shouldn't be, with people they shouldn't be, to do two simple things. The first thing that they have to do is to release stress. If people like smoking, just notice when other times that they reach for the cigarette, there's times when they're stressed. They're there to release stress. Number two, they're there to increase dopamine. Now, I'm not putting any kind of judgment upon whatever behavior you have to increase stress or reduce stress or increase dopamine. All I just want to put forth is, are they good for you? Or good for your finances, future, family? Or are they not good for you? Remember, there are a whole bunch of things that help you to reduce stress and increase dopamine that might be good for you. So I've done things like ice bath, breath works, going into nature, knowing how to discharge things that are not good for me. And I realized that they simultaneously, when I do these things, a lot of them are free. They just take a little bit of time and effort to put yourself in these places, grounding also, in places of nature. When you do these things, they allow you to reduce stress and allow you to increase dopamine without the necessary costs that come with doing unhealthy things and the repercussions that come with doing unhealthy things also. So that's something that I found to be very, very useful, because remember, we all need to relieve tension and stress and increase dopamine. And we can either do it in a healthy manner or an unhealthy manner for us. So knowing how to regulate your nervous system, make sure that you have the right kind of energy, be in the right kind of places and spaces, watching your diet, noticing the things that you consume, not taking things that might give you temporal joy and dopamine, but take from tomorrow, which therefore very, very oftentimes they say about alcohol and energy drinks, because you feel a whole surge now, but it takes energy from tomorrow. It takes a lot of dopamine and joy from tomorrow. So being able to notice these things and put yourself in good spaces where you make good decisions is really important. So last one is about spirit, right? So how exactly do you make sure that you come from a clear place or so? I think every single day is to check in with yourself and ask yourself, right, whatever decision I'm making, wherever I'm coming, is it coming from a true, authentic space? I think that's really, really critical. Having quiet time where you ask yourself, am I doing this because it's truly what I want to do for myself? Am I doing it to please somebody else, please parents, fit into society, etc.? That conversation with yourself, which very few people have these days because you're constantly distracted by social media or comparison. But when you take a little bit of quiet time and check in with yourself, is this coming from a true, authentic space? Do I really want this for me? For something that I want to create from a place of passion or purpose? Or am I doing it for some other person? And so having that realization where you put yourself in the space where you do things for yourself, not because you want to prove something to somebody or because you want to please somebody else, is very important. Because when you do those things, you may come to realize, when you do it for somebody else or to prove to someone else, and I had this conversation with a client recently, you may come to realize that the person you're proving to might not actually give a shit. They might not care. And the next thing is, you're doing it to please someone, is oftentimes where they are not pleased with you, and there's a high chance that after you do this, they'll still be unpleased with you. And so this is a lose-lose situation. You do it, they might not care, or they might never be pleased, and you're not happy too. That is a lose-lose situation. You do it for yourself, at least whether they like it, they don't like it, you are happy. And so that's a mind, that's body, that's spirit. When I adjusted all of these things, I realized that the fuel I had with it, physical fuel, mental state, spiritual fuel, doing it for myself and what I want to create, my own drive and motivation, and mental fuel also, making good decisions, coming from the right space also, and knowing how to process information meant that I was in a very, very good space. And when I'm in a good space and I do the work that I do it with drive, with focus, and with passion. And that has made the greatest difference versus any cool marketing, new funnel, new sales script as well. Because think about it. If you have a new marketing funnel and sales script, but you are not in a good space, both to execute and to follow through, what good does it really have? So, as we conclude this video, I urge you to watch it several times and ask yourself, how can you improve yourself mentally? How can you improve yourself physically and energy-wise? And finally, are you doing what you do from the right space? I'll catch you in future videos.